Hello, friends and family from HES. Today we're going to read a story which teaches us some hard history. This is the true story of Thanksgiving, or one of the true stories of Thanksgiving. It's called Squanto's Journey. This was written by Joseph Bruchac, who happens to be a Native American author, and illustrated by Greg Shedd. We're also going to read a preface in this book, 1621, A New Look at Thanksgiving. And today we are going to look at the real story of Thanksgiving, not just the myth. It's sort of like we have our stories about the happy times with the pilgrims and their big tall hats and the gathering with the native peoples. We have those stories, which are our myths. And we're going to look a little more closely at the truth of Thanksgiving, which is very complex and beautiful and difficult. We're going to look at real things like real turkeys and maize, the corn that was a great gift, the growing of the corn that was a great gift from the native peoples to teach the colonists, and the native pumpkins and squash that fed the people and how they were grown. So let's read together. Let's study the real history of the Thanksgiving story. We'll start with a little piece from this book, 1621. It is 1621 by the English calendar. In a small settlement on the edge of the sea, 52 English colonists are celebrating the success of their first harvest. For nearly a year, Massasoit, a Wampanoag leader, has been keeping close watch on the colonists. He arrives with 90 of his men. For 3 days, the groups gathered together at the place now called Plymouth. Over the centuries, versions of this story have been told and retold, creating the popular myth of the first Thanksgiving. Many Americans imagine brave, peaceful settlers inviting a few wild Indians over for a turkey dinner. But there was no cranberry sauce or pumpkin pie at that 1621 first harvest celebration. There were no Indians with woven blankets over their shoulders and large feathered headdresses cascading down their backs. There were no pilgrims in somber black clothes and tall hats with silver buckles either. The English didn't even call themselves pilgrims. That's the myth. Taking a new look at Thanksgiving means putting aside that myth. It means taking a new look at history. It means questioning what we think we know. It means recovering lost voices, the voices of the Wampanoag people. True history includes the voices of all its participants. Read, listen, and think about our shared history. And we're going to do so with Squanto's Journey. The story of the first Thanksgiving according to Tisquantum, or Squanto. My story is both strange and true. I was born in the year the English call 1590. My family were leaders of the Pawtuxet people, and I too was raised to lead. But in 1614, I was taken to Spain against my will. It is now 1621, and I am again in my homeland. My name is Squanto. I would like to tell you my tale. I look up, and I watch a heron flying overhead. It goes toward the falls that gave our people their name. We were the Pawtuxet, the people of the falls. Our cleared fields were not empty of people then, as they were when the English pilgrims landed in the freezing moon of 1620. Only 6 winters have passed, but so many things have changed. I remember that day in 1614. White men had often come to fish our bay and trade. They had brought us fine things in exchange for beaver and deerskins. This time, when their tall ships, with sails like the wings of giant birds, anchored offshore, this time was different. John Smith was one of the English captains. He and his officer, Thomas Dermer, traded with us. I liked the way Dermer shook my hand. Smith had learned much from dealing with other Indians in the summer land of Virginia. He knew we valued honor. The other captain was Thomas Hunt. After Smith left, Hunt landed at Pawtuxet. He told us he was Smith's friend. "Come to a feast on my ship," he said. More than 20 of us went aboard to share food with friends. But Hunt was no friend. He set sail, taking us with him as captives. Left behind were our families, our homes, our people. Our lives were no longer our own. We were crossing the wide salt waters. The journey was long, but my spirit did not desert me. Hunt took us to Malaga in the land of España, Spain. We were to be sold as slaves, but the men who served the Creator lived there. It was they, who called themselves brothers, who freed us from our chains. I learned more of their language. I let them teach me about their ways of thanking the great mystery. I told them what I wanted most. I wanted to return home. With the friar's help, I went to England. English ships often sailed toward the sunset. I realized that if I could be of use to the English, they might take me with him. There's Squanto and one of those friars in Spain indicating he wants to go home. It took much work, but I learned the language well. In March of the year they call 1619, I sailed back to New England at the side of my friend Thomas Dermer, one of John Smith's officers. He told me that things were not well between my people of the First Light and the English. Englishmen and their ships were now being attacked when they came to shore. Perhaps if I accompanied the English, I could speak with the Indians and they could trade again in peace. My heart felt as if it were soaring on an eagle's wings as the ship cut through the waves, but I also feared what I might find. Where there were this many people, he said, telling me of the great illness in New England brought by white traders, now only this remain. Where there were this many people, now only this remain. It proved, as he had said, the sickness had come down upon the Pawtuxet like the blow of a war club. Only a few people survived. My wife, my children, my parents, and all those closest to me were gone. How terribly sad for Squanto. Together, Thomas Dermer and I did our work. We made friendly contact with the Namasket and the Pokanoket. More than once, my words saved the life of my English friend. Peace seemed within our reach. But Epinow, the powerful sachem of Kapawak, viewed the English as one might a deadly serpent. Epinow, too, had been taken to England as a slave and brought back to act as a guide. He had escaped and vowed to always fight the white men. The deeds of other Englishmen convinced his people that he was right. In the summer of 1620, as Thomas Dermer and I talked of peace, an English captain invited a party of Indians on board their ship. Then suddenly, the white men shot them down. When we reached the island of Kapawak, Epinow and his warriors attacked us. Many English were killed. Thomas Dermer was wounded. With my help, he was able to escape, but I was taken captive and given to the Pokanoket as a prisoner. That November, when the Mayflower reached shore, the Pokanoket watched. They did not come close to the English. If the Pokanoket had been stronger, they might have attacked the white men, wiped them out, or driven them away. But the Pokanoket were still weak from the great sickness. Where there had been thousands, there were hundreds. The strength of our people was so small that now the Narragansett to the south, untouched by the plague themselves, ordered the once proud Pokanoket and Namasket to pay them tribute. I spoke to Massasoit, the sachem of the Pokanoket, as a Penese should, with respect and honor. Befriend the English, I said. Make them come to understand and support our people. Massasoit at first did not listen. He watched silently through the winter. Then Samoset came to visit. He was a sachem of the Pemaquid people who lived farther up the coast. He had done much trading with the English. He knew some of their language. "Let me talk with Sangalismoanak," he said to Massasoit, nodding to me as he spoke. Massasoit agreed. The next day, March 16th of 1621, Samoset strode into the English settlement. "Welcome, English," he said in their tongue. He showed them the 2 arrows in his hand. One had a flint arrowhead. The other had the arrowhead removed. The arrows symbolized what we offered them, either war or peace. The English placed a coat about his shoulders to warm him. They invited him into one of their houses. They gave him small water, biscuits and butter, pudding and cheese. "The food was so good," Samoset said to me later, laughing as he spoke, "I decided to spend the night." When he left the next day, he promised to return with a friend who spoke the language well. Here he is dining on English food. So it was that 5 days later, on the 22nd of March, I walked with Samoset back into my own village. Once Pawtuxet, now it was Plymouth. I looked around me. Though much was changed, I knew that I at last had returned to the land of my home. "Perhaps these men can share our land as friends," I told my brother at my side. There he is, our friend Squanto, going home. At last, what once was Pawtuxet was now called Plymouth. In the moons that followed, there was much work to do. The Pokanoket freed me to be a guide and interpreter for the English. Not only did I act as an envoy between the English and our people, I also had many things to teach the white people about survival. They knew little of hunting and almost nothing of planting. It had always been the job of the Pawtuxet women to care for the crops, while men such as myself hunted. But I had observed much in the years since my captivity. I had seen in Newfoundland how the English learned from our people how to grow corn. "Use the small fish that wash up on our shores in great numbers," I told the English. "Bury those fish in the earth, and they will feed the corn." I showed them how to plant the seeds of corn and beans and squash together in hills. I told them when it was the moon of hoeing. They listened well and worked hard. I came to see that these pilgrims could be our friends, and we theirs. Together we might make our home on this land given to us by the Creator of all things. A good harvest was brought in this fall. Some of their English crops have not done well, but the 3 sisters, the corn and beans and squash, have done well. As I look at the beans growing up about the stalks of corn, I think of how our 2 people have become entwined. I feel hope for our children in the seasons to come. With our help, the English have learned enough of hunting and fishing to provide the food for a great feast such as this one, this feast for all our people. Now, as we eat together, I give thanks. I have seen more in my life than most men, whether Indian or English. I have seen both death and life come to this land, which gives itself to English and Indian alike. I pray that there will be many more such days to give thanks together in the years that follow. I am Squanto. I am known to all those who gather here, English, Pokanoket, Namasket, and even a few of my own surviving Pawtuxet. I speak to you as a man of honor. I will never leave this land. I give thanks for all our people to the Creator of all things. Squanto's Journey, a Thanksgiving Story.